Corey Feldman. Every child of the 80s grew up with the star of the Goonies, Gremlins and Stand By Me, then watched him spiral downwards into one of the Brat Pack's true lost boys. His new memoir is Choreography. It's a disturbing look at the very darkest side of Hollywood, and he's in the chair tonight for a prime-time exclusive interview. Corey, welcome to you.
Hello, Pierce. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your recent support.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure, because anyone like me that remembers the 80s at all, for that reason, remembers the Lost Boys, remembers you, the two Coreys were, very famous, and both had a lot of problems dealing, I guess, with the fame and the money and everything that comes with that. Sean Penn, I thought, was very interesting there, that it may just be that you would have had these problems, and people that have these problems in Hollywood might have them in real life. Well, what do you think of that?
He's exactly right. I say that all the time in interviews. I say, people always want to focus on Hollywood because, well, we're famous. So, yeah, if you're famous, you're going to talk about it on the news. But what about the millions of kids across the world that still deal with drugs and alcohol problems? They still end up in rehab. They still end up losing everything or destroying their lives. It happens in all walks of life, in all races. But, of course, those aren't on the spotlight,
It's a searingly honest book, I've got to say. I mean, some of it is very difficult to read. It's so honest. You talk about the really dark, sleazy side of Hollywood, focusing a lot on abuse that you suffered and Corey Haim suffered and others, physical and sexual abuse, as well as mental abuse. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, my story in and of itself is fairly tragic. And I did have a very, very rough upbringing. I endured a lot of abuse. I endured a lot of pain in my childhood. I did not choose this life. It was chosen for me. I wasn't a guy who, came to Hollywood with big dreams and decided he wanted to be a star and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't like that for me. For me, it was more like, I guess, what you would compare to child slavery or being born into royalty. You could look at it whichever way you choose. Either way, it's a forced life. It's not a freedom of choice like most human beings on this earth have the right to choose. For me, it was, this is what you're going to be. And before I was old enough to internalize what that choice was, it was there, and there was no taking it back. So the struggle became, how will you move forward from this point? Will you embrace it? Will you continue to use this as your strategy, as your guide, as your goal, or will you move back from it and try to create a different path? Well, by the time I was old enough to even know what that decision was, it was far too late. I had to go forward, so here I am today.
I mean, what's extraordinary, as you say, you were 7 years old when you effectively became a star as a commercial actor. You were the prime breadwinner in the family. To make it worse, with this money coming in, both your parents suffered a lot of problems with drugs. You moved on to cocaine after finding your own mother's stash. I mean, as you say, this is not a normal upbringing. It's a very abusive scenario for a young boy to be growing up in. And yet, you also said an interesting thing, that it was only really 2 years of your life, the hard drug partying time, and yet you're still known, even now, as the cokehead Corey, which must be quite galling. How do you try and shrug that off? How do you get over the partying side when it's such a small part of your life, really?
Pierce, I think I tried to shrug it off for the last 20 years, but that didn't work. So instead, I've written a book. If you can't kind of sidestep it or imagine that people will get past it, then you have to really start internalizing and investigating why. Why is it that people want so much to put this branding on me? What is the purpose? What's the driving force? And then I started to realize, as I became older, wiser maybe, a little more mature maybe, I started to realize that the driving force is people are ashamed. People have their own secrets. People have their own things that they may have done to me through a course of action that they were hoping would kind of get covered up and go away. And, I became inspired with all of this notion, really, when I saw what happened with my dear friend Corey after he passed and was snubbed at the Oscars. That was it. That was the final straw for me. I then realized at that very moment, I get it. We are being asked to be erased from history. They are basically trying to erase our legacy, everything that we achieved. This guy earned over $1 billion. I mean, literally, his films, if you go back and do the math, his films alone, not including mine, earned $1 billion at the Hollywood box office. And yet, what is he? Where is he? Why would he be ignored at the Oscars? That to me made no sense. And so I started looking at the bigger picture. What's the real demon? The real demon is that things happened to this kid that were straight masochistic, awful, terrible, I mean, torturous. And he was literally demonized. And not just in the sense that the things that were done to him, but it's more about the sense of the things that were done as a result of the things that were done to him. So basically, instead of, you know, allowing him the ability to recover from the things that happened to him, which he wasn't unfortunately able to, I had the same type of things done to me, not to as severe a measure as him, but I still had very, you know, difficult things that I dealt with. I was able to get past them to the point that I'm still here today. I'm still alive and luckily sober and able to deal with it. He unfortunately is not here today. He did get himself together. He was in much better shape before he passed. He did not die of drugs. As I said when I was on Larry King, I said when the toxicology reports come out, we will find that he was not in fact on drugs, and it was not because of drugs. But it was because of a lifelong of abusing himself as a result of the things that happened to him as a kid. And that's really the moral of the story. Things happened to us as kids. Somebody felt bad about it. So instead of taking the blame, they took the shame and they tried to sweep us under the carpet and act like our legacy didn't exist. Well, it did.
Well, one of the extraordinary relationships that you cultivated was with somebody who would know that better than almost anybody else in Hollywood, Michael Jackson. When we come back after the break, Corey, I want to talk to you about your relationship with Michael. And obviously, he's not here to tell the story. He died at 50, another tragically early victim of the Hollywood system, many would say.
Yes, indeed.
And I want to not only dedicate this show to him, because without Michael Jackson, I wouldn't be performing on stage tonight.
Corey Feldman performing with his band, The Truth Movement, shortly after Michael Jackson's death. I'm back with my primetime exclusive now with Corey, talking about his revealing new memoir, Choreography. Your relationship with Michael Jackson was clearly a very important one to you. It had its ups and downs. You fell out with him briefly, and he was a mentor in other moments. And obviously then he died at age 50. What is your overview of that relationship?
Well, he was the big brother I never had. Quite honestly, he was everything to me as a kid. He taught me so many things. He's taught me about loving animals, vegetarianism, animal rights, environmental issues, caring about your fans, how to treat your fans, the fact that the moment that you meet your fans may just be a fleeting moment to you and something that you're in the middle of things and you got to take time for, but to them, they're going to remember this moment for the rest of their life. So how important it is with that exchange and how you treat them. A lot.
He also obviously had a difficult relationship with his father, and you had obviously a similar difficult relationship with both your parents. Did you discuss that together? Was he helpful in that sense?
We discussed everything. You know what I mean? It was literally like a big brother, little brother relationship where we talked about everything. I would talk about the abuse that I endured at school, which is also in the book, the abuse with my parents, and also the difficulties of having to go to work every day instead of being able to play. You know, both of us shared that similarity. We were robbed of our childhoods. We weren't able to just have sleepovers or go play at the arcade with other kids or take your bike down the street and do what you want. That didn't exist for us. That wasn't a reality. So instead we had to, you know, go from meeting to meeting and you know, sit in a room full of people all day and be judged and have people question you about everything that you do. Again, life under the microscope, totally different, a very different perspective than most people ever have the experience of having.
Your first marijuana joint was apparently with River Phoenix.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about the other Corey before the break there, and Michael now. 3 people who are no longer with us. I mean, does part of you, Corey, feel fortunate to still be alive?
Oh, thank God. Yeah, God bless. I feel so fortunate, so fortunate. You know, I saw you talking on The Talk the other day. You were appearing on that show, and you had said that, you know, is it possible for Corey to have a comeback and the things that he has to overcome? And I thank you for that, because it's always good to put those thoughts in people's minds. Let's see how he's going to do it. But quite honestly, I don't feel like I've ever gone anywhere. I'm one of the few people that I know that has consistently worked for almost 40 years now. And I've never stopped. I do 3 films a year generally. Of course, they haven't been the big $100 million smash films like they used to be, but that's okay. I'm all right with it because I'm still working and I'm being creative and I'm doing what I love to do. I have my first theatrical release coming in over a decade this January, which is called The M Words, and directed by the legendary art house director Henry Jaglom, and it's being mainstream theatrically released. So I'm very excited to even be in the game, to be honest, and I'm very humbled by it. That said, I'm also very grateful just to be on Earth. I have a beautiful son. I have a beautiful life today. I've overcome a great many things, both professionally and personally. So I think more than anything, this book is more of a testament to the fact that not only have I survived it, but I've learned how to survive it and be happy. And that's the big thing. I am happy. I love my life. I love life itself. I love helping people, and I love spending time with my child. So the rest is just gravy, really.
Well, Corey, it's a fascinating book. It's searing, like I said. I mean, anyone who wants to know what the dark side of Hollywood is like, and the upside as well when it happens.
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there too, right? I mean, there's a lot of happy moments.
No, totally. It's not completely upsetting, but the upsetting stuff is very upsetting, and I applaud you for being so candid about it. It's a great lesson for people who want to know why guys like you perhaps go off the rails. Well, this is why, and it's
you did bring up a good point.
Lesson.
You did bring up a good point, Pierce, which is that I did go off the rails, but it was only for 2 years. You know, a lot of people want to keep you in that hole, and I wanted this truth to come out, for people to really open up their eyes and examine it and go, wait a minute, let's think back. When did he have his problems again? Oh yeah, that was like history ago. Yeah. And yet, well, Corey, it's still in the forefront of the news.
It's great to see you back. Great to see you talking so eloquently about all this. Thanks for coming on. The book's called Choreography. It's a great memoir of a fascinating life. Corey, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Pierce. I appreciate it.